Welcome back to the New World Podcast Q&A. We just got done with a podcast with Greg Lehman, and we got some questions for you guys. So, Greg, thank you for coming on the podcast. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Greg is a physical therapist physio and chiropractor. But you were a chiropractor first and then went to physical therapy school?
That's true.
Okay. Just before we get into any of the deep questions, I wanted to kind of take the elephant out of the room, and I know it's been kind of awkward for you, Nick, but I, along with Greg, am a pretty big gymnast. I wanted to ask Greg if he would define this as being a gymnast, but 5 years ago, I did an adult gymnastics class, and I was able to do a front flip. It was on a spring floor, but I was able to do a front flip, and I got it on video. So I don't know if that makes it any more official or not. And then I can do muscle ups. So am I considered a gymnast, or what's your definition of a gymnast?
I mean, pretty much anyone can do a front flip.
Oh, that was good.
Okay, all right. Well, I
Bang.
tried.
However, a muscle up, that just means you're strong.
Okay,
There's
I'll take that. Hey, Greg Lehman told me I'm strong. All right. So I guess what?
Well, Mark, I once jumped out of my recliner for the second slice of pizza. Does that mean I'm a gymnast?
No. That also just means
a front flip means you can commit, and you don't let yourself get freaked out. You gotta trust the mechanics.
Okay. So what gymnastics skill are you working on right now?
Well, primarily I'm on the trampoline. It's just you can do more stuff, and it's easier on you. And I know I could do this like 20 years from now. I'm in my 60s, and then I do some giant swings, like they're called chicken grip giants on the bar. But I'd do more bar stuff, but I keep ripping up my hands. So giant swings just when you go all the way around.
Oh,
jeez.
Okay.
But you're strapped in. You have like on the bar, there's like a plastic wrapper, like just some tube. And so that'll slide really easy so you don't rip your hands up, because I don't know how to use grips properly. And then like a strap that wraps around that. So, which is both like safer and more dangerous, because if you let go of the bar and you or your body freaks out, you'll just like be attached to the bar, and instead of falling to the ground, you'll just dangle on your shoulder joints. Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
You'll dislocate your shoulders or something. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's not bad.
Well, that probably takes a little bit more commitment than a front flip, but so I got a real question here for you. So this is someone asked this. So we talk about the biopsychosocial approach a lot when it comes to an injury, and how most situations are a little bit more complex than just this structure's broken and I need to fix it. Can you give me your elevator pitch on how you would explain that to someone who's a new patient, who's never heard that concept before?
Yeah, I mean, I traditionally just start explaining like that pain is really more about sensitivity, and that the structure is involved. But I might ask them like, does the pain change pretty randomly? Is it better when you're sleeping well? Is it worse when you're not sleeping well? And then I often ask questions. What do you think that means? And then listen to them, and then say. And I always ask like, can I give you a new idea here? And that's really that pain is like the tissues involved, but there's other things that influence how much we feel. So I'm not really cool with like discounting the role of the tissue or the periphery. I like to more add on to it, right? Meaning like if you're not, and so I start with sleep because it's pretty non-threatening, but being stressed and not being active and whatever's going on and not doing things that they love, we can say that it sounds odd, but that influences how much pain you feel. Even though you're backing off and you think that's helpful, sometimes we want to add more, because it's not just about protecting the tissue, it's about calming down the the protective nervous system. So
Nice.
that's the elevator pitch.
There
And
you
I'll
go.
explore that to this too.
So you said grew up in Canada, grew up in Canada your whole life, and currently still live there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I'm in Toronto.
So Canada's known for maple syrup. So are you a pancake or waffles with your maple syrup?
I don't probably waffles, but I don't really eat either.
Oh man.
My kids, I didn't grow up with maple syrup. That's what the rich kids had. We had Aunt Jemima.
Oh, okay.
That's
Okay.
like the store bought. My wife gets the stuff in like a flagon. I don't know what it is, in a growler, that type of. It's not a growler full, but it's some clay jar. I'm like, oh, kids are so fucking spoiled. Their fancy maple syrup.
Okay, so
I think people get a strange impression that everybody in Canada just goes out and grabs maple syrup from trees or something.
No, I'm
crazy.
joking. But is there any food when either in that they only have in Canada or that they don't have in Canada, and when you come to the United States, that you really like to eat?
Well, we don't have In-N-Out burgers.
Okay.
Um, but no, there is no real Canadian food. We have some Quebecois food, that like poutine, but that's about it. I mean, Canada is incredibly multicultural, so you can kind of like, you can get whatever you want. Yeah,
Gotcha.
like authentic, that sort of, especially Toronto.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, so there you go. Greg Lehman does not eat waffles or pancakes. I think you're kind of missing out, but that's just my thought.
Very disappointing, but that's okay.
So kind of on the same level there of that last question, is there only one correct way of sitting and standing posture for everyone? Is there only one sitting?
Yeah. Of course not.
Okay.
And yeah. And the argument now is like, if you sit slouched all day, sure, you might not have pain at the time because it's more efficient, but you might be paying for it later. Like that, these arguments are like sort of changing, and now you're getting into the area that you can't really test. So that's the last I've heard for the last 10 years. Like, sitting, you won't feel it, but your discs are getting this. I don't believe in this, sorry, just so you know, but that's what you're hearing, where most people have kind of accepted that you can have all kinds of different sitting postures, but you'll hear now like, oh, you'll pay for it later. And that's not really, that's just an idea. There's no evidence for that either.
Gotcha.
He's trying to inoculate you against that idea.
So
I wish we had something here that counted how many times all three of us changed postures in the last hour.
Well, I was going to ask Greg to analyze Nick and I's posture throughout this whole podcast we had, but I guess that's fine. We don't have to get into that. I guess the last big question I have, and you mentioned it in the podcast about how you are probably most active on Twitter, and I follow you, and I really enjoy some of the stuff that you put on there, but I can see that you like to play devil's advocate a lot in some of your conversations. And as someone who also likes to have conversations and agree or disagree with a lot of people and just kind of have intellectual conversation, what strategies do you have to not piss the person off or make them take it personally, and still while still explaining to them why you don't agree with their argument?
I mean, I don't know if I do that well. I mean, you try to I always want to acknowledge that there's there's utility in a lot of things we do, but often, you got to make sure that you understand what someone else is saying, and hopefully the other person, always try to clarify that they understand what you're saying, so that you're still debating the same thing. Like, that often happens. You realize, you hear what people say, and you're like, I don't think you're debating what I'm saying. So always try to clarify there. But and really, you're always trying to make it about the information and not about the person. it always bothers me when people get like a little snide and personal, and then and I don't deal with that well either, because then I just reciprocate. I'm like, oh, this is just a fucking shit show, and I gotta get out of this. But I literally, I never started. I know that sounds childish, but I never do. If I say go fuck yourself, it's because you've done something repeatedly that was offensive. So that's happened sometimes. So like I always try to make it about, just the information, not about the person. But
Gotcha.
that's a tip, but it's not foolproof. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, so the final thing I wanted to talk about was I just want you to tell people, because it's been recommended to me, but I've heard a lot of people who really like and enjoy your seminar. So can you tell people kind of some of the main things you talk about, and I'll link in the show notes the link to where you can find everything, but just tell people about your seminar.
So I think a strength of the seminar is like, I acknowledge that like I certainly don't know everything, but when there's 30 people in a room, there's a lot of knowledge and wisdom in there. So we try to do like a lot of like, here's a clinical problem, when do you expose, when do you protect? Expose is like you stress someone, try to get them to adapt. Protect is you're like, oh, let's not do that for a bit. So like having like always thinking of clinical questions like that are relevant, and then going in small groups and getting other people to share. So the course isn't, although I love talking about research, I try not to bore people with a shit ton of research. I'll bring it up if people ask questions, but it's really trying to be really pragmatic, like how, like finding out what's the most important, like what's a common thread amongst different, therapy providers. Like, what is it that we're really doing? Why do people get better? So like, it's all about asking big questions like that, and then going through some of the literature and then some of the experiences that everyone has had to support that, and sort of, showing how lots of people can treat differently but still be helping the same people via the same mechanism, even though it looks different. So that's a really abstract way to look at the course. And so again, it really is a melding of biomechanics when that's important, and whatever term we use, pain science is not really the best term, but like that's the other aspects, but like the psychosocial aspects of pain, and how you can maybe help people in different ways.
Well, you're coming to Chicago. I'm in St. Louis. You're coming to Chicago in May, and if it wasn't the weekend right before all my finals, I'm telling you, I would make a trip up there, but unfortunately, I'll have to get you the next time you come to the Midwest.
It's pretty lame.
It's
a pretty lame excuse, Mark.
I'll probably come back the next year, because I think that Chicago course is popular. So we got lucky. Cool. And a lot of people wanted to go.
Cool. Well, Greg, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. And for all you guys out there, go check out what Greg's doing. He's awesome educator and putting out some great content. So thank you guys for listening and watching, and we'll catch you next episode.